Got a bit of an odd topic today to cover, which is the condition of softwood trees after you felled them and what it looks like when you're debarking a freshly cut softwood tree versus one that's been down for a long time and starting to rot underneath the bark, and some of the other sort of conditions you'll find your logs in. This one here happens to be the log that's going to be the basis for our pig shelter. It's over 10 feet long and it's a good diameter. I'll show the butt ends of it here in a moment. Thankfully it hasn't deteriorated too bad, so I think I'll get away with, quite a few years of life out of the log still. But it did sit on the ground obviously for too long, and the bark was left on it, and you'll be able to see the signs of deterioration or rot underneath the bark as we start to remove it. You can see it's starting to rot in spots here, but still pretty solid. Here you see the upper end of the log, and again it's starting to show signs of rot and getting soft, but it's still pretty good for the most part. Okay, so what to expect when you start taking the bark off of a tree like this is that your axe will dig into it pretty bad. It doesn't want to just glide along the log because it's not very solid underneath the bark any longer. And so you will sometimes take off, the outer kind of layer of wood as you're taking off the bark. This bark will come off quite easily because it's been sitting for so long that after a while it just starts to want to fall off, but underneath it is again signs of rot, and you'll find a lot of red kind of fibrous look to it. On a fresh log you're going to find that it's just a nice solid color, very light color going up the whole log. And there you can see how I'm chipping into the wood. I can grab one of those. There's the actual outer layer of the log coming off because of the rot. Now the more rotted your log is, the more you can expect your axe to dig in like this and shave it. And you're going to find that underneath it's not all that smooth looking either. Really reddish tone all through here. Bark comes off very easily. So this is a log ordinarily that would be too far gone to be used on a newer building. Now here, as a bit of a sign of health, my axe is still gliding here. There's still some moisture on the log underneath, and I'm not biting into the middle section very much at all, meaning it's still a solid log, and it'll be okay for the pig shelter we're building. See, I'm digging in bad to the log here because it's deteriorated. I'm going to estimate that this tree's been down for about a year, sitting here with the bark on it. And it's probably something that I just forgot to pick up. You can see the different colorations on the log, the various fibers, because this is all sign of decay on a softwood log, and this is why you do not want to leave the bark on after you harvest your logs if you're using them for the types of things that I use my logs for. We just dropped this log tonight. We'll take the bark off and show you what a new log looks like underneath. You can see there's a lot of moisture under the bark. It allows you to peel it really easily, and it's all this nice uniform color. None of the reddish hue of the other piece that we took the bark off of. No rot, and the axe doesn't dig in anywhere. You can see at most I can shave really fine strands off the log. So this again is the right time to skin your log when you first cut it down. Get the job done, and then you'll preserve a really nice log. Here's a look at a log that I cut and skinned about a month ago, and it's got that really nice color to it, but it's now dry all on the outside here of the log, as it's been sitting up here on a block for the last month. This log I cut months ago, and I only took some of the bark off. I have more to go here. Although this log has a reddish hue, there's no rot here, and if you notice, it's not coming off like loose fibers, like the log that had sat for a long time on the ground with its bark on. But this is dry now, and what I expect as I try to take off the bark on this section is that it's going to be a lot harder to come off because it is quite dry, and it's after the time that it's fresh where it has moisture in it, but it's before the time where this log has started to really rot and deteriorate. So it's going to be hard to get the bark off of this. Here you can see fresh parts of the log down here, and there's nothing rotted, but it's like the bark is just stuck to the log at this point. So this is the worst thing you can do, is leave the log for months at a time and have this bark kind of adheres to it. And if I leave it longer, then it's going to start to rot, and I end up with a log that's not usable. So I have no choice now at this point but to take this bark off. It's going to be very difficult as I do it, and take a lot longer time. Some of these logs you'll peel when you first cut the log down, if you're not in a hurry. Other times you don't get to it when you're cutting your trees, and it might be weeks later that you go back and take the bark off them, and sometimes it's even longer than that, and you get in a situation where your tree has started to rot, or the bark really is stuck to the tree really bad, and it takes longer to peel it. You try to keep up on the logs that you're cutting so that I can preserve them for future projects. Now, this is a lot of work, of course, to do this, but anything I build now will last a lot longer than if I left the bark on them. I guess I see it as a bit of a respect thing for the trees that I'm cutting. This shelter alone is going to take probably 50 trees, and as I cut those, it does improve my forest, and the trees that are left grow much larger and become a larger carbon sink. It is a net benefit to the woods, what I'm doing over here, but it is quite labor intensive to keep up on all of this.